And Mike, if you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Beard.
Here.
Ms. Duncan.
Here.
Mr. Edwards. Well, he is here. Mr. Franklin.
Present.
Ms. Frost.
Here.
Mr. Hosseini.
Here.
Dr. Marshall.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Perez.
Present.
Ambassador Rude.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Mr. Stavros.
Here.
Mr. Temple.
Here.
Mr. Tripp.
Here.
Dr. Yost.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. We are going to move forward with the agenda. I'm going to take a few items out of order, keeping in mind that we anticipate that Speaker Cannon is going to be with us around 11 o'clock. So I'm going to try to cover as many items as we can prior to that time to ensure that we're making the best use of our time. However, I am moving on to item number 2 at this point, which is approval of the board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay. So I'm approving, just for the record, January 18th, pardon me, we're approving January 18th, 19th, 2011, January 20, 2011, February 17, 2011. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? At this time, I'm going to actually move forward to a couple of committee reports. I am going to ask if you would go to item number 7 on your agenda, which is the Academic and Student Affairs Committee report, and ask Governor Duncan if she would move forward with that item.
Okay. Just a couple updates on the student affairs and academic programs. Again, we had a great workshop yesterday. I think we have some fairly clear marching orders of working with the consortium and our distance learning experts to come back to this board with some suggestions, but expect that to be an ongoing dialogue in the near future. Also, just an update on the academic coordination program. Again, thanks to Dr. Wilcox and all the provosts in the office, on the audience. This really has, and Dottie and her entire staff, this has been just a huge undertaking trying to get a better view system-wide, get some coordination, and do it right. And I really believe we are on the right track with that. I mean, it's being led by the people who know the most about the academic programs in our system, our provosts, and I think that we're making good progress. There are a number of programs and things that are working their way through. Just wanted you to know that there are that by the May 23rd meeting, I believe we're got some deadlines, so the pressure's not off. It's not like we just announced this one. I mean, we're moving through the process, and you're going to start to see a lot of information coming back from this effort in the upcoming meetings. Third thing was the student veterans. Back in March of '09, we had an update on an overview really to what was happening with the service members who were coming back into our system. Just a brief reminder that at that time we were having a hard time kind of understanding who all how to track our veterans, and so we had estimated 3,945 in fall of '08 based on VA certification data. Now, by November of '09, we're up to 5,673. So the increase and the bringing them back into our system is real. It is happening. We are continuing. USF had a great best practices kind of day-long seminar. I think all of our student affairs, those vice presidents are all working very well together to share lessons learned, and we're really trying to do our best. But to that note, and I know the Chancellor may want to add some comments on this, we're continuing to work with the veterans, and the system is working with the command of the Marine Corps' Installation East to implement a leadership scholarship program, and the program will be part of a transition program for them that offers Marines and sailors under their command that are being discharged from active duty. Applicants must meet a selection criteria established and admission standards in participating state universities, and we're working through all the agreements. And again, I think you'll hear some more from the Chancellor on this, and we'll have a more formal rollout. But I just wanted all the board members in the audience to know that this is something we take very seriously, and the Student Affairs Committee and the staff are all working very hard to continue to do everything we can to make that an effective transition for them back into our system. On our next committee affairs meeting, fair warning, we will be revisiting and hearing from the Student Health Insurance Task Force. The fun continues there, so look forward for information on that, and that team continues to put in a lot of effort. And then I guess maybe, Chair Parker, is it okay for Governor Franklin to give a quick student perspective update as part of my report? Are you good with that?
Okay. The Florida Student Association, this week has been a great week for us. We had our rally and tally at the Capitol on the 22nd. We've been here in Tallahassee since Sunday. We met with the governor actually Tuesday morning about a lot of our issues as well. I know there's a few student body presidents here in the audience. I see Ms. Helena Ramirez. She's the internal vice chair of the Florida Student Association. I also see Mr. Oliver Peckham and Mr. Michael Long, who are co-presidents at New College, Florida. I know I saw Kim Diaz earlier today as well, but I believe she's in the bathroom, who's at Florida Gulf Coast University. Sorry about that. But we set a couple of agendas. Actually, our elections for FSA are going to be June 4th right now, so there'll be a new member coming to the board very soon, and so we're really excited about that. And also our transition meeting is going to be April 16th in Central Florida as we transition all the newly elected presidents into the Florida Student Association. We are currently 10 strong, which is exciting. 10 of the 11 schools in the state university systems are dues-paying member. We have a great opportunity to really reorganize the association and move the agenda forward. And thank you.
Thank you. Well, again, I just want to say personally, you have been just such an amazing representative of your organization this whole time on the board. I hope that you will at least maybe come to the next meeting so we can have a more formal, I guess, transition, unless Chair Parker has something planned today. But we really appreciate your effort. I guess just one, this is my personal opinion as Chair of Student Affairs, and I do try to talk with a lot of the student government people on a regular basis. We really would love to see that be 11 for 11. I think that is important for our system, and so, you know, I would encourage you guys all to continue to carry that message back to the appropriate parties. We also had, and I guess you guys had a little rally too, if I'm not mistaken, on Tuesday. Do you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank the Chancellor for coming out and speaking to all the students. We assembled right outside the Capitol, and Chancellor Brogan came and spoke for us, as well as a few other legislatures. And we had a great time. We lobbied. We talked to a lot of legislatures about our agenda, what we're trying to do to move the state and higher education forward.
Great. Thank you. Madam Chair, there's also several items on the consent agenda that relate to the Student and Academic Affairs Committee. I'll just give a brief overview of them. There's information in the package, but I understand they'll be voting on that in the consent agenda.
Actually, what I'd like to do is move approval of the consent agenda unless there's any questions.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Well, let me just go over the items on the consent agenda briefly. We have the Florida Distance Learning Consortium organizational structure and governance plan that responds to the statutory language that makes the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors responsible for the consortium. We heard from them yesterday in our distance learning workshop. The plan was approved by the State Board of Education on March 12th, and it's now up for consideration by this board. Also, there's an amended Regulation 7.005 and new Rule 72-1.001 implement state law relating to the residency for tuition purposes. Both have been through the public comment period and being considered for final approval, and we've had discussion on all of those at prior meetings. And then we have amended Regulation 8.011, new academic program authorization, responds to changes to statutory language in 2010 and strengthens provisions regarding program duplication. It has also been through the public comment period, is now ready for final approval. The University of North Florida is requesting limited access for the exercise science track with the BS in the health science program. This request has been reviewed by board staff and found to be in compliance with all board regulations. And Florida State is requesting limited access status for newly approved BS in dietetics. The request has been reviewed by the board staff and found to be in compliance with all board regulations. So with that, I would move approval of the consent agenda for those items.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything further, Governor Duncan?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move to an item that I don't have specifically on the agenda, I guess at least not on the printed agenda that you were sent. And I'm going to ask Governor Colson if he would provide us an update on the Legislative Affairs Committee, please.
Yes, ma'am. We are coming to the end of the third week of the legislative session, and I'll give you a brief update. First, I want to thank our committee members, Norm Tripp, Dick Beard, Ann Duncan, Maury Husseini, and Gallup Franklin. They've been in Tallahassee a lot the last 3 weeks and before, and have just done a terrific job. As you're aware, the House and Senate Higher Education Appropriations Committee released earlier versions of their budgets. First, let me tell you about the key issues in the House and Senate that are beneficial to the system that should make it through the process. There's a keen awareness that reform of Medicaid has to be done carefully to avoid the loss of $100 million in federal funds to our medical schools. And the Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee is recommending a much-needed 5% tuition increase to the base tuition in the House. In the House proposal. It also proposes restoration of $1 million to the board office to replace most of the $1.5 million of lost federal stimulus money. Meanwhile, the proposal from the Senate includes almost $20 million for operation and maintenance of new facilities. In addition, the Senate proposal currently includes the creation of a scholarship for students who take upper division STEM courses and demonstrate financial need. Now, as usual, at this point in the process, there are issues being put forward that we will continue to discuss with the members. There are a couple matters in both chambers that we hope to address as the session proceeds. In the House budget, there is a provision that would reduce the maximum salary that could be paid from state funds to university presidents, administrators, and board office employees from $225,000 to $200,000. Although the House plan would allow the use of foundation funds or other non-state funds to pay for the reductions, there is real concern that unrestricted money that might be used is insufficient at many institutions. The Senate does not have the same provision, and it prohibits the Board of Governors from having a DSO or foundation. It also prohibits the use of any foundation funds for salaries of board office personnel. In addition, the Senate proposal eliminates the $1.5 million in stimulus funds as we expected. The proposal also cuts another $350,000 in general revenue and 17 positions from the board office budget. While we would prefer to not see cuts of this nature, I want to remind you that we are still early in the legislative session. At this point in the process, the Senate does not include a base tuition increase, but the board's authority to approve tuition differential requests of up to 15% remains unaltered. Some good news. Senate Bill 632 by Senator Steve Orlick, which contains all elements of the board's substantive legislative agenda, passed unanimously from the Senate Higher Education Committee. Likewise, House Bill 4177 is sponsored by Representative Larry Metz. This bill contains a portion of the board's substantive agenda to repeal the law prohibiting universities from requiring certain students to attend at least one summer session. Additionally, language has been removed from Senate Bill 234 and House Bill 517 that would have allowed licensed gun owners to carry their weapons on our campuses. Our university police felt very strongly that having guns on our campuses would make our students much less safe. Therefore, we thank the bill sponsors, Senator Greg Evers and Representative Chris Dorworth, and other members for the action. We have been providing legislatures, as we meet with them, some information about the state university system and how it compares with other systems around the country. We are the second largest system in the country, behind California. Yet we have by far the smallest staff of any state university system in the country. Right now we have 53 staff positions, of which only 45 are filled. Compare that to the California system, which has 1,405 staff positions, or the Texas system, which has 635, and is a smaller system than ours, almost by a third. We also have, our chancellor also is the least paid of all the top 10 systems and chancellors in the country. So we are running a lean and efficient system here, and for which we should be very proud. I would like Norm Tripp, who's my vice chair, who's been in all these meetings, or Maury, to add any comments about. I mean, I would say that it's extraordinary the respect that the board members have received from the legislators when we go in and visit with them, and the high esteem the mission of the universities is held by the legislative leaders when we've met with them. So, Norman?
Thank you. Yes. Our meetings have been good. With few exceptions. We've been talking differently. I'm a changed man, even myself. I now see the light in the fact that if we're not going to be funded by the state, then we've got to deal with the tuition issue. We've talked with many of the legislators and telling them that, asking them, do they want us to have top 10 universities? Do they want to see greatness? They have all said yes, and we've assured them that our goal is to make sure that the universities are great. We've talked about tuition. Some are acceptable to it. Some have issues, as we heard this morning with the president. We're really concerned about the issue of the salary. It may not affect the largest university who may have discretionary funds, but I'm sure that FAU or FIU that has fewer discretionary funds would have difficulty trying to make up the salaries and their administrators and things of that nature. And it just doesn't do anything good for us. It sends the wrong message, and we've expressed that to everybody we've met with. I want to tell you that our chancellor is well received, well respected when we go through, and so that's been a positive. And we have a terrific team. You know, Dick Beard and Maury and everyone, when you see how they're accepted when we walk in, they're known faces, they're known names, and interestingly enough, we've been able to send a message that it's not about this board, it's about the universities, and I think that's been well received. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Chair, Maury, do you have anything? Or?
It's the same thing. I think one of the, I think the message we are trying to take across to the legislators that that our job here to take our universities, you know, to help them because they're the one doing the work, to take them forward and be an institution. The bug is that to help university to collaborate with each other and take it forward. And we want at some point for us to quit, you know, dealing with the small stuff and that kind of get that out of the way real quickly, and us working with the legislators in a much bigger issues that coming in front of us, as you mentioned, you know, try to be one of the top 10. How do we get there, the way we get there? And I think that's where we need to emphasize in the bigger issues. I think the legislators are listening to us. I think we are still in our infancy with the changes what's happened last year. However, I think we're going forward. I think there's some more work to be done. But Norm is right. I've been showing face in their offices. I think it makes a difference.
And we, Madam Chair, we've been there 3 or 4 times. I suspect we'll have a couple more visits before the session's over. So my committee is working very hard, and I appreciate their hard work.
I think our committee fees should, we get committee fees, don't we? I mean,
Committee fees?
Yeah, we get big committee fees. Yeah.
oh, I'm in the wrong meeting.
So that's my report, Madam Chair.
I want to thank you, Governor Colson, and to all the members of the board and those who are and are not members of your committee. Thank you so much for the extra time you've taken to come up and meet with legislators. And unfortunately, although you're not paid a lot, I'm going to ask that you continue. You know, there are a lot of moving parts in the session. You know, we don't have you know, they're really trying to find ways to make things happen. And you may not realize it, but the more they see you and the more they see us, the better it is. So I just want to encourage you to continue. There are 2 other things that I ask that you would add is that, you know, when we talk to legislators about their support of our system and about the idea that we want to see our universities grow in rankings, if you would add to that conversation that we are committed to ensure that we have metrics in place to ensure that our universities are being accountable, and that we understand that they're expecting us to ensure that they have innovative ideas to support any types of increases that they may be interested in receiving. I mean, I think that's the kind of messaging I've gotten back, and I just kind of wanted to
No,
mention
and we
to
have
you.
been talking about there is, as we ask for more, they're going to want more in return, and I think we understand that, and I think our university presidents understand that as well.
So, okay. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Governor Colson. Oh, one other comment. I know I've spoken to several of my presidents and several of the members of their board, and you've indicated that in your conversations as you have made requests for your particular university, you've also made requests for the system. I just want to say thank you for that. It helps us as a board when we have the 11 universities that we're working with, when we're all working together and kind of singing to the same sheet of music in many areas. It's beneficial to us as we try to get things done over in the legislative branch. So for the presidents who've taken the extra time to also advocate on behalf of the system, I just want to say thank you for that, and know that your work and actions have not been appreciated. So thank you very much. With that, what am I doing on time? With that, I'm going to move to item number 6, which is the Facilities Committee report. Governor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We had what best might be described as a very interesting meeting. The first item would be to approve the 2011-12 SUS fixed capital outlay legislative budget request as is in the material. And on behalf of the committee, I would move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Governor Edwards.
Okay, the next item would be the move to adopt a resolution approving the issuance of fixed-rate bonds by the Division of Bond Financing on behalf of the University of Central Florida in an amount not to exceed $55 million for the purpose of financing the construction of the Academic Village and Greek Park expansions, the addition of a central chiller plant for the university's housing system, and other general capital improvements of the existing house system, all of which will be or are located on the university's main campus, which was approved by our committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Governor Edwards.
The next item would be to adopt a resolution approving the issuance of fixed-rate parking facility revenue bonds by the Division of Bond Finance on behalf of the University of Central Florida in an amount not to exceed $12 million for the purpose of financing parking garage 7 on the main campus of the University of Central Florida that was approved by our committee, and I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Governor Edwards.
The next item took quite a bit of discussion, but I think we came forth with a very reasonable resolution. The committee approved, and I would move approval of a resolution approving the issuance of debt by the University of South Florida Financing Corporation in an amount not to exceed $26,500,000 for the purpose of financing a major renovation of the USF Arena and Convention Center. The facility is currently named the USF Sundome and is located on the Tampa campus of the University of Florida, contingent upon the University of South Florida Foundation setting aside in restricted funds $20 million to guarantee the interest and principal payments, with the understanding that the University of South Florida can return to the Board of Governors with additional financial information and request this amount be reduced. I would move that.
Second.
Any further discussion?
One comment that I would like to make, I misstated one thing when I indicated that the Board of Bond Finance had, or the Division of Bond Finance had approved this. They didn't actually approve it because they aren't issuing the bonds. They reviewed it and it complied with state statutes. And that was my fault. That was not USF's fault.
Governor Perez.
I was going to make the same clarification. I didn't remember who had said it. I just wanted to clarify it.
I said it.
Any further discussion? Governor Tripp.
I would just like to make a comment for the record that I think we need to be very careful about these emergencies. There seems to be too many of them coming, and when we set something up that's a process, I think we ought to follow it unless there is found to be a real exception of why we're not doing it, so that we don't treat one university one way, one another way, and it looks like, you know, we have a friend here, we don't have a friend there. this was a process that I think that financial advisor was easy to find, easy to do, and should have been part of the presentation.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Governor Edwards.
I believe that concludes, I'm sorry. We also had a discussion on our concerns with PICO and what could be done to help us specifically as it relates to maintenance. And we passed a resolution which I would move that we support the waiver of requirements of Florida Statute 216.301 for 1 year to provide additional time to expend fixed capital outlay appropriations. Universities could reserve a portion of existing PICO maintenance appropriation for emergency repairs. We revert and appropriate to provide for maintenance needs of PICO funds, provide authority for the Legislative Budget Commission to authorize fixed capital outlay appropriations for repair and maintenance of existing facilities, and we recommended that go to the Legislative Committee for their action, and I would so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. And Governor Edwards.
We also recommended that we look at amending the Board of Governor regulations to provide further funding authority to effect emergency repairs, and I would so move.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So based upon what we've just done, then Governor Edwards, then the first three items under this legislative action required, staff is going to prepare the language, Chancellor Brogan, and get the information over to Governor Colson. So as his committee continues its work, they'll be aware of these additional items that we're adding based upon the condition of the PICO list. And then based upon the board action issue, I anticipate, I'm looking over on if it's I guess it's a Chris issue, that Chris, you'll go through the regulations and come up with a recommendation so that our next meeting we can consider amending regulations to ensure that we put everything in place to allow for the unfortunate position that we've been placed in with PICO.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Governor Edwards.
Got papers all over everywhere here. I believe that concludes our report.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we will go then to the Chancellor. Chancellor, you can make a report now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, and I know this will happen again, but I do, as always do, want to thank Dr. Barron, the members of the Board of Trustees, and everyone at Florida State University for hosting us. I'm very fond of saying I'm not sure people really understand what a big deal this is and how much behind-the-scenes work goes into putting these things together. Your folks have been, and I've told them throughout the course of the day as I've seen, they've been exceptional and have really helped to accommodate. Of course, it was a heightened level of accommodation based on the fact that I think today I can pretty safely say we're the only place in the state of Florida hosting the governor, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House all in the same room on the same day. But we do thank you very, very much. Your folks, as always, are terrific. I also want to thank Governor Colson, the members of the committee. There were other members of the board, who, including the chairwoman, who have frequented Tallahassee during the legislative process to add their 2 cents in terms of trying to work best we can with the state university system and the legislative process. So to all those who were named and those who weren't, thank you for continuing your representation. That includes the representation by the universities. Having the presidents walk those hallways, having the board members, the legislative staff of the universities are working incredibly well together with the board office and our legislative representation. It doesn't go unnoticed, that is for sure. It is a very important part of what we do to advocate on the part of our state university system, and I thank everybody for their efforts in that regard. It was mentioned a moment ago, the rally and tally, and I, too, want to congratulate the students of our state university system. We literally had all 11 universities represented by students at the function, from as far away as FIU on a bus. Their bus left, they left FIU, stopped at FAU, picked up students from there, which is saying something, since that's one of the hottest athletic rivalries in the state of Florida these days. So to get on the same bus was quite a deal, and drove all the way to Tallahassee. And then people from all of the other universities came in. It was a great showing, and we were very pleased. And it was quite the buzz of the Capitol for the remainder of the day, Gallup. And since I'm on you, I will say how much, and I said it that day, your time grows short on this board, but I think I would echo the sentiments of everybody at this table and everybody you've worked with. You've been an exceptional representative for the 321,000 students of the state university system, but you brought to this a keen ability to see the big picture. You know, there were many people who were concerned about putting students on the boards of trustees and putting students on the board of governors when the constitutional initiative was circulating, and not because they didn't love students. They were concerned that students may not be able to step back from their role as student or student leader and deal with the big picture issues that are a part of this system. And I have to tell you, we haven't been let down yet in that regard. And you are one of a long line of great representatives for our students, but also for the system, and we thank you for that. I also wanted to do another recognition, Madam Chair. As all of you know around this table, my good friend Eric Smith has decided that he is going to move on and has tendered his resignation. I believe we have him until June. But I can tell you, because I work with him very closely with the Higher Ed Coordinating Council, and even beyond that, just regularly scheduled opportunities to visit and talk. We're working together on some national initiatives regarding Common Core standards and assessment for the K-12 system around the country, and how we might better create better prepared college-ready students or career-ready students. He is a gentleman, he is a scholar, and I mean both of those in quite the literal sense. And I know we're going to miss him. We'll have greater opportunity, I think, before it's all said and done to do this more formally, but I didn't want to let today go by without acknowledging his contributions to the system. I wanted to do another introduction. With us today is a young man by the name of Adam Geary from Orlando. Adam, are you out there somewhere? There you are. Would you stand? Adam is part of the current class of gubernatorial fellows. Florida really hosts a tremendous program under the executive office of the governor called the Gubernatorial Fellows. Right now there are 13 of the most amazing university students from all over Florida who are here in Tallahassee and working as a part of their fellowship in various agencies throughout state government. It is not only a remarkable opportunity to provide to our young people, but it's an incredible acquisition by these agencies. Everybody who's ever had a gubernatorial fellow will tell you what they brought to the table in terms of what the agency had to do. I mention Adam because he is not only a student at the University of Central Florida. You know that Dr. Hitt and his folks are very proud, and everyone should be who has a gubernatorial fellow. It is quite an esteemed and prestigious position. But also he is shadowing the Board of Governors today to see how all of this works. I've asked him to please explain it to me following today's activities. I've been searching everywhere for an understanding. But Adam, we welcome you. And just an aside, I mentioned Gallup Franklin a moment ago. He is one as well of those 13 gubernatorial fellows from Florida A&M University in his spare time, and another great representative. I had the occasion to be with those 13 fellows last week, and I can assure you they are amazing young men and young women. And someone said it earlier, but I agree. We are in great hands with the next generation. They're going to serve us very well. So, Adam, we're glad to have you, and I look forward to my debriefing later on after the meeting. Very quickly, Madam Chair, a couple of other issues. We have been reaching out to the universities regarding the tragedy in Japan. This is a very different issue in many ways than was the tragedy that continues to play out in Haiti. or the oil spill and how our system responded to that. This one is a world away, and therefore recovery efforts and relief efforts will come over time, but our immediate concern was for faculty, students, staff who might be in Japan. And really our first responsibility was just to work with the universities and do rather an inventory of what they might have going on currently or what they might look to have go on in Japan in the very near future. As you might expect, with a university system of such diversity and programming, we did have faculty and students in Japan who have all been called home. The State Department put out a directive urging all Americans to leave Japan, not only because of the obvious nature of the quake and the tsunami, but based on the unknown potential of the radioactive nature of the problems they're facing with their nuclear power plants. So all have been called home, and we know that interrupted what were no doubt some incredible learning opportunities and teaching opportunities, but I think in an abundance of caution, the universities following that directive were right on target and did exactly the right thing. Our inventory showed that the system had 31 students and 5 faculty in Japan at the time of the earthquake and the tsunami, and I think all, I'll qualify this, I'm not positive, but I think all have returned home by now. Our universities have also reached out to the 139 Japanese students who are currently studying within the state university system to offer options to ensure academic progress if they choose to return to Japan at this time. And I also want to note that, as is usual in these circumstances, a number of our universities have already begun to engage in assistance and relief efforts to support the victims of the tragedy in Japan. We're always proud of our universities for taking that civic responsibility. Our legislative initiatives, I did want to mention to you, since the governor was here and talked about it, I spent an hour with the governor last week talking specifically about Medicaid. That term gets thrown around a lot, and there's a great deal that goes on under the umbrella of Medicaid, not least of which is the fact that Florida has stepped up to the plate and made some, I think, unparalleled commitments in our country to the issue of medical education. And to that end, while we are committing vast sums of money in facilities and faculty and student opportunity to prepare the next generation of physicians, hoping that most of them will stay and practice in Florida, we are suffering the pangs of Medicaid issues just as are everyone else. We receive $100 million a year as a supplement to support our medical schools, and much of that money goes directly for services for Medicaid patients who may either be totally unable to acquire health services or find it difficult to do so. I assured the governor that, in my opinion, and my opinion is based on talking with our medical personnel, that it is possible to change the way Medicaid is done and handled in the state of Florida without impacting that incredibly important $100 million supplemental funding for our medical schools that provides that safety net of services to Medicaid patients. He was already aware of it, very much appreciative of our position, and said he would work very hard to make sure that those two are not mutually exclusive in terms of change and reform. We also talked about the issue, the ongoing issue of medical residency slots, and asked the governor that as he continues to work with the feds to make sure that the residency issue remains very high on their radar screen, so that we can not only train doctors but provide residency opportunities that will hopefully and statistically help keep them here in the Sunshine State. Just a quick word, the Higher Education Coordinating Council continues to meet and do its work. I mentioned the commissioner before, but I know Will Holcomb is here in the audience as well. The chancellor of our Florida college system is a member of that group, and that group continues to do good work, not only cross-pollination work between delivery systems, but more than anything, make sure that all the representatives from the various systems are at the table and conversing. We're putting together an incredible inventory that we will share with you when it is refined, that is all technologically based, where you can actually bring up various parts of the state to see what degrees are presently offered, etc. And there's great work being done. I'll end, because our special guest is here, by saying thanks again to Florida State. Thank you to our legislative representatives. And Madam Chair, that completes my report for today.